wife? We don't know. He certainly had children. And so the danger has been, of course, is that when somebody is as important as him and had such a major impact as he did, he's then regarded as a god. And what we've done ever since is create our own gods. Man's very good at creating gods. We do it every week on telly, if you look at it in its own particular way. But the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of confusion in most people's mind, because most people want to believe in a god. I want to believe in a god, but not a man, an ordinary human god. I want to think of a super intelligence, a great spirit, and a great spirit who makes this fantastic universe work in the way it does. And if we can plug into nature, as our ancient friends did, and we can plug into each other, and as Confucius says, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Jesus had the same message, and he shrunk it down to reciprocacy. And Henry George, a marvellous American in the 1890s, had the same basic message, that doing unto others as we would have them do unto us wasn't just for the perfection of individuals, but it was also for public bodies, businesses and countries to consider that they should do unto others. And so therefore we have a very important tradition here, which I think we all can learn from if we look at, and not get wrapped up in my God's better than your God, my God says this, my God will do this for you if you're good or bad. These are all horrific man-made muddles which we're having to live with and cope with every day, unnecessarily.
Yes, I think you mentioned in your lecture about the Abrahamic faith being, doesn't it not come from the Anunnaki?
Well, that's right. The line of reasoning behind those comments was that I believe that very many scholars now appreciate that neither Muhammad or Jesus wanted to create a new religion. Their hero was Abraham. So for the Hebrew, the Christian, the Jew, the Arab and Islam, all considered Abraham as the key figure. So that what they were looking at was the Abrahamic faith. And so we need to look at what was the Abrahamic faith? What was Abraham believing in? What did he? So we can do that quite simply by going back to the town that Abraham lived in. And what did everybody do in that town? Well, first of all, we find that they had wonderful laws and they followed the Sumerian system. But we know that all those great cities were destroyed and everything was fragmented, and all our little groups of role societies and leaders and organised structures fell apart. Nobody knew what to do, where to go. And Abraham was appears to be amongst the mercenary class, the military class, because people were soldiers. They had a group of people who were soldiers. All societies put the farmer, who was called a husbandman, or a stockman, or a shepherd, at the top of the hierarchy. And to look after their interests were what are called the artificiers, the people who took the goods from the farmers to make available in the towns and provided the farmers with the things they needed. And the next important class were the soldiers and the military class, who were there to make sure the farmers were not robbed of their land and their crops seized, etc., because agricultural production was absolutely crucial. And the various hierarchies come down the scale. And I'm afraid the public servants, and if you like politicians, were at the bottom of the scale. What we've done in our modern world is turn that upside down and then wonder why we've got problems. So it's an interesting point. Abraham was part of one particular, if you like, part of this role society. And he was even buying and selling land when he arrived in the area of Canaan. And his history is very interesting. We've got, I think, 7 generations going back beyond Abraham, so we've got his family tree. We know where they lived and what they did. So the Abrahamic faith was very closely related to this organised, wonderful Golden Age world society. And Abraham was clearly dispossessed because of great catastrophes, and was trying to pick up the pieces in the best way he knew how. We don't mean to denigrate Abraham. It was just that if you wipe out a whole civilization and knock the cities down and global catastrophe, then you've got big problems. And I think, personally, we've been trying to put those problems right ever since. And we haven't known how.
The Druidic faith belief, is that also linked to the Anunnaki?
Yes.
It is.
I read a very important book, which I hope everybody will find and read in the local libraries, called St. Paul in Britain, by the Reverend R.W. Morgan, dedicated by Connop, Bishop of St. David's. And it was written and published in 1860. In my opinion, he had our history wrapped up very well and explained very well, and also explained extremely simply and clearly, without complication, all the great philosophers and the way things worked in ancient Greece and ancient Egypt, etc. And so that it's an education on its own. He, being a vicar, considered religion important, but other scholars have made it clear that the Druids it wasn't a religion, the Druid religion, it was a way of doing things. And this is the same as we had in Mesopotamia and Egypt in our Golden Age. It wasn't a religion, it was a way of doing things. We've invented this word religion and it's messed things up. Temples weren't temples, they were tamons, administrative buildings primarily. And so this is where the confusion comes in. But we have so much evidence of the links between the Druids and the Tuatha De Nan. And the Tuatha De Nan are the people of the god An, back to our Karsak. And we also find the Druids using the Ogma text, and Ogma goes back to Ogmash, Shamash, back to Uta, who was one of the 7 two-eyed serpents or archangels. So we do have a direct link. And when the Druids, the Druids always said, we are the serpents, we are the Druids. And as we spoke earlier, the word serpent or wise serpent wasn't a snake at all, it was a wise person. And this is where the confusion has come along. And we get the Druids coming into Britain as predominantly long-headed people by the look at it from the graves, coming in round about 4000 BC, when we see the farmers from the Near East coming in with their seeds and farming, particularly where we have an area of side fields on the west coast of Ireland, which was a very large area cleared, was done communally, the fields were rectangular, the walls were built, woods were cleared, fantastic, traditional, if you like, farming operation of livestock and crops. And then the climate got wetter and colder, and conditions different, and then the peat built up on those field systems, 5-6 feet of peat, and we've dug down and find, God, there's an old farming system underneath all this peat. So climate change, migrations, people moving, the pressures that we have on the planet and have had ever since people have records threaten us enormously, and we can see that within history, and that's where we can learn so much from history, not only as to what went wrong, but can also see great successes and great knowledge, great skills, great technology.